Keanu Reeves finds out his driver is homeless. What he does next will melt your heart. Keanu Reeves had just finished a long day on set. His mind was tired, but the moment he stepped into the back of the car, he immediately felt a sense of relief. The car was cool, the soft leather seats felt comfortable, and the gentle hum of the engine promised a peaceful ride home. Keanu let out a small sigh as he settled in. It was his usual routine, always a car ride after a busy day, but today felt a little different. His driver, Alex, greeted him with a polite smile, as he always did. Alex was a middle-aged man with rough, weathered features. His eyes looked kind, but there was a certain sadness in them, something Keanu had noticed but never asked about. It wasn't the first time he had ridden with Alex, but it had been a while since they had shared more than just casual greetings. The car pulled away from the studio, and the two men settled into a comfortable silence. Keanu glanced out the window, watching the city pass by. Traffic was light for a change, and the streets were quiet. As the car made its way through the city, Keanu could feel the weariness of the day still hanging on his shoulders. He didn't want to dive into anything too serious right away, but something about the calm of the ride made him decide to try a different approach. "Alex, how have you been?" Keanu asked casually, glancing over at his driver. It wasn't much, but it was a start. He could tell that Alex had been the same professional driver who always kept to himself, but he felt there was more to his story. He had to admit, he didn't know much about the man who had been driving him for months. Alex seemed a little caught off guard at first. He didn't immediately respond, and Keanu could tell he was thinking about how much to share. For a moment, it seemed like Alex wasn't sure whether to open up or not, but then, in a soft voice, he started to speak. "I've been okay. Just, trying to get by," Alex said, his voice a little quieter than usual. Keanu raised an eyebrow, sensing there was more to this than just a getting-by comment. "Yeah, how's that been going?" Keanu asked gently, trying not to sound too intrusive. Alex gave a small shrug, as if unsure of how much to reveal. "It's been hard. I've been bouncing around, trying to find a place to stay," he said, his voice trailing off. There was an odd mix of vulnerability and resignation in his tone. Keanu didn't respond immediately. He could sense that Alex wasn't just talking about the usual struggles people faced in life. There was a deeper weight in his words. Keanu's curiosity grew, but he didn't want to push too hard. It was clear that Alex wasn't the type to talk about his problems easily. Still, the more Keanu thought about it, the more he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something important Alex wasn't telling him. He had never heard Alex talk about his life outside of being a driver. Keanu wanted to understand, but he also knew better than to pry too much. "Do you mind if I ask where you've been staying?" Keanu asked after a brief pause, his voice calm but compassionate. He wasn't trying to be nosy, but there was something in the way Alex had spoken that made Keanu want to know more. Alex hesitated for a moment, his eyes glancing at the rearview mirror before looking down at the steering wheel. "I've been staying in shelters." "On and off," he finally admitted, his voice quiet but steady. "It's not easy, Sometimes you get a bed for a night, other times you don't." Keanu felt a lump form in his throat. He hadn't expected this. He had always assumed that Alex, like many people in his circle, had a home, a stable life, and a clear path ahead. But the reality was much more complicated than he had imagined. Alex had been hiding his struggles behind a well-maintained appearance and calm demeanor. For a moment, Keanu didn't know what to say. He had heard stories of people facing homelessness, but he never expected to be in this situation, hearing it from someone he had grown to trust. He had seen how Alex worked tirelessly every day, always showing up early, never complaining. In all their time together, Keanu had never suspected that Alex had been going through something so difficult. "How long has it been like this?" Keanu asked quietly, trying to understand more. His voice was soft, but the question carried the weight of genuine concern. "It's been a few years," Alex replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's hard to keep a job when you don't have a permanent address. It's hard to hold things together when everything feels like it's slipping away. But I try to stay positive. Keep moving forward, Keanu sat back in his seat, reflecting on what Alex had said. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that Alex's resilience was something he admired. Despite everything he had been through, he had never given up on working, on trying to stay afloat. Keanu didn't want to pity him, but he did want to help. He knew how hard life could be, how the smallest things could change everything for someone in need. But how could he help without making Alex feel embarrassed or ashamed? For the rest of the ride, Keanu remained quiet, his mind racing with thoughts and questions. As they drove through the quiet streets, the car felt more like a refuge, a place to think, to understand. Keanu could sense the unease in Alex, but there was something more to it. It was the way he carried himself. He wasn't asking for pity, and he wasn't looking for sympathy. He just wanted to survive. Keanu thought back to his own life, how easy it was for him to take his success and comfort for granted. He had never truly known hardship in the way that Alex had. He had a roof over his head, food on his table, and a stable career. What had Alex endured? What kind of strength did it take to keep moving forward despite everything? As the car drove on, Keanu made a silent promise to himself. He wasn't sure how he could help Alex, but he was determined to find a way. Whether it was something small or something big, Keanu knew he couldn't just sit back and do nothing. Alex had opened up, shared a piece of his life, and in doing so had given Keanu the opportunity to make a difference. Keanu wasn't sure what the future held, but one thing was clear. He couldn't walk away from this without doing something. By the time they reached Keanu's home, the car came to a gentle stop. Keanu looked at Alex, who had not said much after their conversation. There was still a quiet sadness in his eyes, but Keanu felt a deep sense of gratitude toward him. Alex had trusted him with his story, and that wasn't something Keanu would take lightly. As Keanu got out of the car, he paused for a moment, looking back at Alex. "Thank you for sharing that with me, Alex," he said softly. Alex nodded, but his eyes remained fixed on the road ahead. Keanu could tell that, even though they had spoken about hard things, a small bond had been formed between them. Keanu knew it wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning. He had learned something important today, that sometimes the people we least expect are facing the greatest struggles. And sometimes all it takes is one person to listen, to care, and to make a difference. Keanu woke up the next morning with a heavy heart. The conversation with Alex the day before had stayed with him throughout the night. He had been thinking about Alex's struggles, about the years of hardship he had silently endured, and about the strength it must have taken to keep moving forward despite everything. Keanu had always believed that life could be unpredictable, but he never realized just how much someone could endure until he heard Alex's story. Keanu had a comfortable life. He had fame, fortune, and stability, but none of that mattered if the people around him were struggling. It was easy to ignore the hardships of others when you didn't see them firsthand. But now, Alex's situation felt real, and Keanu couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to do something. He couldn't just keep living his life as if nothing had happened. He had been given opportunities, and it was time for him to share that with others who weren't as fortunate. That morning, after a peaceful breakfast, Keanu decided to reach out to Alex again. He didn't want to be pushy, but he wanted to offer something more than just his sympathy. He knew Alex was proud, and it wasn't about charity. It was about giving him a chance to rebuild his life, to find some stability and dignity in the midst of all the struggles. Keanu understood that sometimes all it took was someone to believe in you, to offer you a lifeline when it felt like the world was pulling you down. Keanu made a phone call to his assistant, arranging for a meeting with Alex later that day. He asked her to make sure Alex knew it was an invitation to meet, not an obligation. He wanted Alex to feel comfortable, to know that there was no pressure. Keanu didn't want to make him feel uncomfortable by offering help in a way that felt forced or intrusive. He just wanted Alex to know that he had options, that there were people who cared. As the day went on, Keanu couldn't help but feel anxious. He wasn't sure how Alex would react. Would he accept help? Would he feel embarrassed? Keanu knew how proud Alex was, how he had worked hard every day despite his circumstances. He didn't want Alex to feel like he was being pitied, but Keanu also knew that sometimes people needed a little push, a little help to get back on their feet. The time for their meeting finally came. Keanu stood in the foyer of his home, waiting for Alex to arrive. He paced a little, his mind racing with thoughts. It wasn't often that Keanu felt uncertain about something. After all, he had spent years in the public eye, dealing with all sorts of challenges. But this felt different. This wasn't about a movie or a performance. This was real life, and Keanu wanted to make sure he did the right thing. When Alex arrived, Keanu could see the same familiar look in his eyes, the quiet strength that had made Keanu admire him from the beginning. But today, there was also something else, a hint of uncertainty, of wondering what was about to happen. Keanu smiled warmly at him, trying to make him feel at ease. "Hey, Alex, I'm glad you could make it," Keanu said as he greeted him at the door. "I know this is a little out of the blue, but I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday." Alex nodded, his eyes still cautious. "Yeah, I didn't expect to share all of that with you. I wasn't sure how it would go." Keanu nodded in understanding. "I know it wasn't easy, but I'm glad you did, and I think there's something I can do to help you. Something that might give you a chance to get back on your feet." Alex looked at him, surprised. "What do you mean?" "I want to offer you a place to stay," Keanu said, his voice steady. "A real home. I have a property that's empty right now, and I think it could be a good place for you to start over. You wouldn't have to worry about rent or anything. Just a place to live, a place where you can find some peace and stability." Alex stared at him, speechless for a moment. He wasn't sure if he had heard correctly. "Wait, you're offering me a place to live?" Keanu nodded. "Yeah, I know it's not the easiest thing to accept, but I want to help. You've been driving me for a while now, and I've seen how hard you work. I don't want you to have to struggle anymore. I know it's a lot to take in, but I think it could be a good opportunity for you." Alex shook his head, clearly overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say, it's just, I've been through so much, and I've always tried to handle things on my own. I don't want to be a burden to anyone." "You're not a burden," Keanu said gently, his voice filled with sincerity. "You're not alone in this. We all go through tough times, and sometimes we need a little help to get back up. It's not about charity. It's about giving you the chance to move forward. A place to rest, a place where you can focus on rebuilding your life without worrying about where you'll sleep next." Alex looked down at the floor, struggling with the emotions that were building up inside him. He had never expected anything like this, never thought that someone would offer him a hand in such a generous way. He had always tried to stay strong, to handle his problems by himself, but now he was faced with an opportunity that was hard to turn down. "I don't even know if I deserve it," Alex said quietly, still uncertain. "I've been in such a mess for so long. I don't know if I can accept something this big." Keanu stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You do deserve it, Alex. Everyone deserves a chance to get back on their feet. You've been through a lot, but that doesn't mean you're not worthy of a better life. Take the opportunity. Let me help." For a long moment, Alex was silent. He thought about all the years he had spent struggling, all the nights he had spent wondering where he would sleep next, and all the times he had felt like giving up. And now here was Keanu, someone who didn't have to do any of this, offering him a way out of that dark place. It was almost too much to believe. Finally, Alex looked up at Keanu, his eyes filled with gratitude and a little bit of awe. "Thank you," he whispered. "I don't know how to thank you enough. I don't think I've ever had anyone do something like this for me." Keanu smiled warmly. "You don't need to thank me. Just take this chance and make the most of it. That's all I ask." Alex nodded, his eyes brimming with emotion. It was hard to believe that his life could change so quickly, but he knew that this was his chance to start over, to build something better for himself. Keanu handed him the keys to the property and assured him that he would help with anything else he needed. He didn't want Alex to feel overwhelmed. He just wanted to provide him with the opportunity to regain control of his life. Alex left Keanu's house that day with a renewed sense of hope, knowing that this was the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter that would be filled with possibilities, with stability, and with the chance to rebuild his life. As Alex drove away, Keanu watched him go, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. He had done something small, but it was something that would make a big difference in Alex's life. It wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about offering a helping hand to someone in need. Keanu knew that sometimes that was all it took to change someone's life for the better. The days that followed were filled with new beginnings. Alex had moved into the property that Keanu had offered him, and although it was only a few short days, it felt like a new chapter in his life had started to unfold. Keanu had gone out of his way to make sure that Alex had everything he needed, and it wasn't just about providing a roof over his head. It was about giving him the chance to rebuild his life. When Alex first entered the house, he couldn't believe his eyes. It wasn't a mansion, but it was comfortable, peaceful, and clean. The rooms were spacious, with big windows that allowed plenty of sunlight to stream in. The furniture was simple but elegant. There was a large, inviting couch in the living room, a fully equipped kitchen, and a cozy bedroom that felt like a sanctuary. It was everything Alex had dreamed of but never thought would be possible for him. He had lived in so many shelters over the years, where he had to share space with strangers, constantly moving from one place to another. The idea of having a space that was just his, where he didn't have to worry about being asked to leave or finding a place to sleep, was surreal. He had spent years making do with the bare minimum, always feeling like he was surviving rather than living. Now, for the first time in what felt like forever, Alex could breathe. He didn't have to constantly look over his shoulder or fear the next day. As he unpacked his belongings, just a few old clothes and a few personal items, he took in his new surroundings. The house felt like it was giving him the freedom to restart, to give his life some direction. For the first time in a long time, Alex allowed himself to hope. The weight he had carried for so long, the uncertainty about where his next meal would come from or where he would sleep, was slowly lifting. Keanu checked in with Alex a few times during the week, making sure everything was going well. He was careful to not overwhelm him or make him feel like he was being watched, but it was clear that Keanu genuinely cared about Alex's well-being. Keanu was never pushy, but he made sure to remind Alex that he could reach out whenever he needed something, whether it was advice, help, or even just someone to talk to. Alex was still processing everything. It felt too good to be true, but every time Keanu offered his support or checked in, Alex felt like he was more and more accepted for who he was, not as someone pitied, but as someone with potential. Keanu didn't just want to give him a place to stay. He wanted to give him a life, one where Alex didn't have to live in the shadows anymore, where he could stand tall and proud of what he could accomplish. A few days later, Alex started to get into a routine. He would wake up early in the morning, make himself a cup of coffee, and sit by the window, looking out at the quiet neighborhood. It was a stark contrast to the chaotic environment he had been used to. There was something calming about the stillness of the morning, and for the first time in a long time, Alex found peace in his surroundings. He had always struggled to keep a job for long periods, mostly because it was hard to maintain steady employment when he didn't have a permanent address. But now, with the new place, he was determined to make a fresh start. Keanu had offered him a job at his production company, and Alex was eager to prove himself. The thought of being able to work and provide for himself again was exciting, even though he had some doubts. He had been out of work for so long, and the idea of re-entering the workforce felt intimidating at first. But Keanu had reassured him that he didn't need to rush. "Take it one step at a time," Keanu had said. "Start slow. You're not expected to do everything perfectly from day one. Just take the chance and the rest will follow." That reassurance stuck with Alex. He wasn't alone in this journey anymore. He had someone who believed in him, and that made all the difference. The next day, Alex decided to take Keanu's advice. He dressed up in his best clothes, a button-down shirt and some worn-out pants, and made his way to the production company for his first day of work. He was nervous, but he reminded himself that this was the opportunity he had been waiting for. As he entered the building, he was greeted by the receptionist, who welcomed him with a warm smile. "Alex, right?" she asked, looking at the clipboard. "Keanu's been expecting you." "He's in the back room." Alex nodded, still feeling a little out of place, but there was a sense of anticipation bubbling up inside him. Keanu was already there, standing by the desk, smiling when he saw Alex walk in. He motioned for him to come over. "Hey, glad you could make it." "Ready to get started?" Keanu asked, his tone upbeat and welcoming. Alex smiled nervously. "I think so, just a little nervous." Keanu chuckled. "It's all good, take your time, let's just get you settled in and go from there." The day went by quickly. Alex was introduced to his coworkers, and everyone was kind and understanding. They didn't judge him for his past, they treated him like anyone else. It was a strange feeling for Alex, being treated with dignity and respect instead of judgment or pity. As the hours passed, he found himself becoming more comfortable in the office, slowly getting the hang of his tasks. He was learning things he had never done before, but Keanu was there, guiding him when needed, making sure he didn't feel overwhelmed. By the end of the day, Alex felt accomplished. It wasn't the same as the days when he used to struggle just to make ends meet. It was different. It was a good different. It was the start of something he had never dared to hope for. As he packed up his things and headed out of the office, Keanu was waiting for him at the door. "How did it go?" Keanu asked with a smile, eager to hear about Alex's day. "It went better than I expected," Alex admitted, his voice filled with surprise. "I thought I'd feel lost, but everyone was really welcoming. I didn't feel out of place." Keanu's smile widened. "I knew you'd do great. You've got it in you, Alex." As they walked out of the building together, Alex felt a new sense of confidence in himself. It wasn't just about the job, it was about the chance to build something. Keanu had shown him that even after years of hardship, there was still hope. He could still make a life for himself. He didn't have to be stuck in the past, weighed down by everything he had been through. This was his chance to move forward, and he wasn't going to waste it. That night, as Alex lay in his bed, he reflected on how much had changed in such a short amount of time. He had gone from feeling hopeless and lost to having a home, a job, and a future that seemed possible. It felt like a dream, but it was his reality now. And for the first time in a long time, Alex believed in himself again. Months had passed since Alex moved into the house that Keanu had offered him. Life, which once seemed to be full of obstacles and struggles, was now steadily beginning to take shape in a way Alex never thought possible. He had settled into his new home, found his footing in his new job, and most importantly, he had begun to rediscover his sense of hope. Each morning, as he looked out at the rising sun, Alex felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. It wasn't the kind of success that was visible on a billboard or in a magazine, but it was his success, small victories that felt monumental in his heart. Keanu had always told him to take it one step at a time, to avoid rushing into anything. He listened, and now, looking back, Alex could see how important it had been to ease into this new life. He had spent so many years just surviving, always moving from one hardship to the next, never allowing himself to dream. But now he could allow himself to have a future. It wasn't perfect, of course. There were still moments when Alex would feel unsure, when the old doubts would creep in. He wasn't immune to setbacks. Everyone had their own struggles, but the difference now was that Alex had the tools to face them. He wasn't alone anymore. Keanu had given him not just a place to stay, but a chance to rebuild, a foundation to stand on. With each passing day, Alex's confidence grew. Work was going well. At first, it had been intimidating to step into a new environment, especially after being out of the workforce for so long. But Keanu had encouraged him, and his coworkers had been patient and kind. Alex didn't just do his job well, he took pride in it. He felt useful again, and it gave him a sense of purpose. Every day at work was a small triumph. The people he worked with treated him like an equal, not someone to pity, and that made all the difference. They respected him for his work ethic, and that respect boosted his self-esteem. One of the most important things Keanu had taught Alex was to believe in himself. Keanu never made him feel inferior, never made him feel like a project. He treated Alex like a person with potential, not someone who was defined by his past struggles. Keanu's faith in him gave Alex the courage to believe that he could overcome any obstacle, no matter how difficult it seemed. As weeks turned into months, Alex found himself reflecting on how far he had come. His financial situation was better than it had been in years. He was able to pay his bills without worry, to buy things he needed without stress. He had food in his fridge, clothes in his closet, and a bed to sleep in every night. The basic necessities of life, which once felt like luxuries, were now his reality. It felt surreal at times, but he reminded himself that he had worked hard for this, and with Keanu's support, he had earned it. One evening, as Alex sat in the living room of his home, he thought about the day Keanu had offered him this opportunity. It had been a moment of unexpected kindness that had turned his life around. At the time, Alex had been so overwhelmed that he didn't know how to respond. But now, he was beginning to understand the power of a second chance. He wasn't the same person he had been when Keanu had first met him. He had grown, learned, and started to rebuild his life. It wasn't perfect, but it was his. Keanu had reached out to him in a way that had not only helped him financially, but also emotionally. When Alex had been at his lowest point, Keanu had seen beyond the surface. He hadn't looked at Alex's situation as a charity case. He had seen someone who was worth investing in. It wasn't just about providing a house or a job. It was about offering something more valuable, the belief that Alex could change his life if he was given the chance. That belief had ignited something inside Alex, a drive to not only get back on his feet, but to live the life he deserved. One weekend, Alex invited Keanu over for dinner. He wanted to show his gratitude, to do something nice in return. Keanu had helped him in more ways than one, and now he wanted to make sure Keanu knew how much he appreciated everything. It wasn't a grand gesture, just a simple homemade meal, but to Alex, it meant a lot. Keanu arrived at Alex's house on a Saturday afternoon. He smiled warmly when he saw the table set with food. It was a simple spread, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and vegetables, but Alex had made everything himself. For the first time in a long time, Alex felt like he had something to offer, something to give. "This looks amazing, Alex," Keanu said as he sat down at the table. "I'm really impressed." Alex smiled shyly. "I'm glad you think so. It's been a while since I've cooked for someone else." Keanu chuckled. "You've come a long way. I remember when you first moved in." "It feels like a lifetime ago." Alex nodded, feeling the weight of those words. "It really does. I never imagined I'd be here doing this, but it feels good, to actually have a life to build." Keanu looked at him with pride. "You've worked hard for it, Alex. You deserve all of this." They spent the evening talking about life, about Alex's plans, his dreams, and his future. Alex had been so focused on surviving for so long that he hadn't allowed himself to think about what came next. But now the future was something he could look forward to. He could finally set goals, make plans, and work towards something that felt real. After dinner, they sat on the porch watching the sunset. The peaceful quiet of the evening felt like a reward after all the chaos Alex had lived through. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of stability, not just in his life but in his heart. He wasn't constantly worrying about the next day or the next challenge. He knew that no matter what came his way, he had the strength to face it. He had learned that sometimes the greatest gift isn't just a change in circumstances, it's a change in mindset. "I don't know where I'd be without you, Keanu," Alex said softly, his voice filled with sincerity. "You've given me so much more than a place to stay. You've given me a chance to really live." Keanu's smile was warm and genuine. "I didn't do anything special, Alex. You're the one who's done all the work. You're the one who's made the changes." Alex shook his head. "Maybe, but you were the one who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Keanu didn't reply at first. He just looked at Alex, seeing the transformation in him. He had come so far from a man who had been struggling to survive to someone who was now thriving. It wasn't just about a house or a job. It was about a person rediscovering his worth. And to Keanu, that was the greatest success of all. That night, as Alex sat alone in his room, he reflected on how far he had come. He was the man he used to be. The person who had felt hopeless and lost was now someone who could see a future ahead of him, a future full of possibility. And as he lay in bed, he knew that no matter where life took him, he had already won. The road ahead would still have challenges, but he was no longer afraid. He had found something far more valuable than a home or a job. He had found the courage to live, and that was a gift he would never take for granted. It had been over a year since Alex first stepped into the house that Keanu had offered him. The transformation in his life had been nothing short of remarkable. What started as an offer of kindness had blossomed into a full-on journey of self-discovery, growth, and renewal. Alex was no longer the same person who had once been homeless, moving from shelter to shelter. He was now someone with a purpose, someone who had not only rebuilt his life, but had begun to thrive in ways he had never imagined possible. It wasn't just about the job, the house, or the steady income. Those things were important, yes, but the most profound change had been internal. Alex had begun to believe in himself. He had gone from a place of uncertainty, where he couldn't even imagine a future, to a place where the future now seemed full of endless possibilities. He had learned to trust in his own strength, to believe that his past didn't define his future. Keanu had never asked for anything in return. From the moment he offered Alex that key to the house, he made it clear that it wasn't about paying back a favor. It was about giving Alex the opportunity to make something of himself. And that's exactly what Alex did. He didn't waste a second. He took the chance, put in the work, and slowly but surely he built the life he had always hoped for. One evening, as Alex sat at his kitchen table, he thought about all the changes that had taken place. He had come so far from where he had been just a short while ago. The room around him was filled with warmth, the soft glow of the kitchen lights giving everything a cozy feel. It was hard to believe that just a year ago he had been sleeping in shelters, never knowing where his next meal would come from. Now he was in a place that felt like home. He had a steady job, a place to call his own, and most importantly, he had a sense of stability. But more than that, he had a sense of peace. There were no more sleepless nights spent worrying about the future, no more wondering how he would survive the next day. For the first time in his life, he could breathe without the weight of constant worry pressing down on him. He had Keanu to thank for that, of course. But Alex knew that he had done the hard work. Keanu had opened the door, but Alex had walked through it step by step. Life wasn't without its challenges, though. There were still days when Alex felt uncertain, days when doubts crept into his mind. But those days were fewer now. He had learned how to manage the tough times, how to face challenges with a calm mind and a steady heart. His relationship with Keanu had deepened over the past year. Keanu had become more than just someone who had helped him out of a tough spot. He had become a true friend, someone who had been there for him when Alex needed it most. Keanu checked in with him regularly, but not in a way that felt overbearing. It was more like a friendship, an understanding that was mutual and respectful. Keanu always made sure to ask about Alex's progress, but he never pushed him. He let Alex take the lead, always offering advice when needed but never imposing his way. It was this balance that made their friendship so meaningful. Alex could count on Keanu, not just as a benefactor, but as a person who genuinely cared about him. As time went on, Alex began to see the world in a different light. He had been so focused on surviving for so long that he had forgotten how to live. Now he was learning to live fully again. He took pleasure in the little things, the quiet moments at home, the conversations with his coworkers, the sense of accomplishment when he finished a task. He had started to pursue hobbies again, things he had put aside during the tough times. He was even considering taking a class to further his skills at work. There was no longer any fear in his heart about the future. He knew that he had the tools to shape his own destiny. One afternoon, Alex received a call from Keanu. He had been busy with work, but the call was a reminder of how much Keanu had been a part of his journey. When Keanu asked how things were going, Alex didn't hesitate to share the good news. He was doing well, better than he ever thought he would be, and it wasn't just about the material things. It was about the way Alex had learned to appreciate life, to see the beauty in each day. "You've come a long way, Alex," Keanu said after hearing the updates. "I knew you had it in you." Alex felt a warmth in his chest at those words. It wasn't the first time Keanu had said something like that, but it still meant a lot to him. Keanu's belief in him had been the spark that had started it all. And now, Alex was walking down a path that he had never thought possible. The next day, Alex invited Keanu over to his house again. It was a small gathering, just the two of them, but Alex wanted to do something special. He wanted to thank Keanu in a way that was meaningful, not with grand gestures, but with simple sincerity. He cooked dinner again, this time trying his hand at a new recipe, a dish he had learned from watching cooking shows. He wasn't a chef, but the act of cooking for someone else, of sharing a meal, felt like the perfect way to express his gratitude. When Keanu arrived, Alex greeted him with a smile. "I hope you're hungry," Alex said as he led Keanu into the kitchen. "I'm always hungry," Keanu laughed, his easygoing nature always putting Alex at ease. The two of them sat down to a quiet meal, the conversation flowing as it always did. They talked about everything and nothing, their work, their lives, their dreams. For Alex, it was a reminder of how much had changed. A year ago, he had never imagined he would be sitting here, in his own home, sharing a meal with someone who had helped him rebuild his life. After dinner, as they sat outside on the porch, Alex looked out at the night sky, the stars twinkling above them. It was a peaceful moment, one that Alex savored. He had never been one to spend too much time thinking about the future, but tonight he allowed himself to imagine what it could hold. He had goals now, things he wanted to achieve, things that once seemed out of reach. Keanu leaned back in his chair, looking up at the sky. "You've really made something of yourself, Alex. I'm proud of you." Alex smiled, his heart swelling with emotion. "I wouldn't be here without you. You've given me the chance to change, to grow. I can never thank you enough for that." "You don't need to thank me," Keanu said with a smile. "You did the hard part. You made the decision to turn your life around." As they sat together, the cool night air surrounding them, Alex realized that the greatest gift Keanu had given him wasn't just the house or the job. It was the belief that he was worthy of a better life. Keanu had shown him that no matter where you come from or what you've been through, there's always a chance to start over. Alex had taken that chance, and now his life was his own to shape. In the months that followed, Alex continued to grow. He set new goals, both personal and professional, and slowly but surely, he reached them. He continued to work at the production company where his skills were appreciated, and he took on new challenges with confidence. He even started volunteering at local shelters, giving back to those who were still in the position he had once been. It wasn't about making up for the past. It was about showing others that they, too, could change their lives with the right support and determination. Keanu and Alex remained friends, their bond growing stronger over time. And as Alex looked ahead, he knew that no matter what the future held, he was ready. He had found strength in himself that he never knew existed. He had learned that no matter how hard life gets, there is always a way forward. All it takes is someone to believe in you, and sometimes that someone can change everything.